Hello, on this Monday 13th of May, which means we're pretty much at the middle of May. What is it? Jason of Archaix says about resets and things always happen in the middle of May. How is it manifested this year? Well, I'm sure some of you, I know some of you, and myself I can include in this, and I shall share my personal experience of it. You've all seen, no doubt, things about geomagnetic storms. You've no doubt heard about CERN and, Harp. Consider what a harp does as a musical instrument. It plucks strings, it causes vibrations. As I said before, up there, it's just a bounce back. It's a great big mirror. So the harp thing is just an overlay, and you'll find that conforms to exactly the same pattern as history. It's an overlay upon an overlay. It's like layers of an onion that you peel away. So Friday, the 10th, got towards the end of the day, because I'm not surprised it goes on for 3.5 days. I don't know if you can think of anything else, a story of someone ascending after 3.5 days, lifting out of the physical body. All metaphors. So yeah, started getting this like dull, sort of foggy feeling, and by Saturday 11 o'clock in the morning, it's like, I don't feel good, I need to go and lay down. I'm feeling grumpy, the body is starting to ache, and it's like, that's okay, because we can draw on experience. I recognize the signs that the body is giving here. Because if it's electromagnetic, geomagnetic impulses, and then overlaid with an interference frequency on top, how that affects the nervous system, how it's imported into these physical bodies. So I sat and listened, went into hermit mode, went within. I'm feeling grumpy. I'm feeling like if somebody says something, it's going to trigger me, and I'm going to bite. And it's like, no, it's stronger than this. That's saying, what does not kill you makes you stronger. If you suppress the pain, you suppress the pleasure. Those physical symptoms, even sort of the muscles in the eyes hurting, and this ache at the back of the head and all over the head, and sleeping longer, and that's okay, rest is best. I recognize all these sensations. It's nothing to be concerned about. It just takes a bit of discernment to sort of realize it too shall pass. It's that dark rain cloud that you can make a judgment on and feel disappointment about. But what follows is sunshine and blue skies. There's a pattern in everything. Patterns are things to recognize. It's something Jason of Archaix talks about. It's something Neville Goddard has spoken about, the pattern man. There's a lecture on that with that title on the Brian Scott channel. You can find Neville Goddard videos on a playlist on this channel as well. Some of it won't appeal because it's quoting biblical passages coming from a perspective using scriptures. But And I understand some of you would be put off by that, but it's just a way of explaining things. I was asked the question, thank you Steve for asking the question, about if it's 1, 4, 7 and 3, 6, 9, what is 2, 5 and 8? Well, on the one side you have 1, 4 and 7. The 714 is associated with Lucifer. That is the light bearer, the one that brings the light. It's a necessary step. On the other side of things is the 3, 6 and 9. And you've only got to look at this reality with stories that are played out in such things as the news, how things seem to be disconnected and disjointed. It's based on make sure that the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. Superficially, yes, but ultimately it comes back to one. It comes back to the one inside of oneself. So the 2, the 5 and 8, you're in a realm that would appear to be duality, and it is in a limited form of 5 senses, and it plays out eternally. There's your 8. The infinite loop. The 258 is the middle path. The 714, the Lucifer that brings the knowledge, because where did the calendrical systems and numbers and words and things all come from? That had to come into it, but there gets a point where it is finite, like everything else in this realm. It is finite, it is not eternal. It will only take you so far. So as much as anything else, I'd like to give a shout out to Billy Carcinogenic. Because it is said 70% of what we say is for ourselves to hear. But what a brilliant man to state several times on the brief bit I saw of a video he did. And he wouldn't actually answer what he was being challenged and called out about by Jason, of course. But he made a point of saying several times, I've got an IQ of 144. So I'm going to say thank you, because Billy Carson, you are the living proof that IQ can only take you so far, and it reveals itself to be very limiting. An IQ test does not infer wisdom at all. If you want to find wisdom, it comes back to go within. It is proven that the heart has something like 43% is like the structure of the brain. Now, if you consider, it's said that we only use 10% of the brain, the other 90% is not used or is just unconscious. It's basically a central processing unit anyway. But even if you had, say, just slightly under half of that 90%, let's say 43%, that cellular structure of the brain, how much would that heart-mind contain? How much knowledge, real knowledge, would it have? How would you access that knowledge? How would it appear? I would suggest through the mind's eye. If we take the letter O, which is a whole, if we have 2 of them, it represents 2 eyes, so you've got good. But if let thine eye be singular, so you fuse those 2 O's, you overlay them, you have 1 O, so now good is God. But where is it? It's all in the imagination. The answers are revealed from aligning within oneself by flattening out the earth, as it were, creating a flat earth, shall we say. But it's not on the linear axis, it's on the vertical axis. It's bringing oneself into alignment within oneself, the course of the spine, being upright, being straight. So there's a flattening out, because if you have an excess of anything, whether it be joy, elation, a euphoria, how are you going to hold it there? There has to be a balance. So would it not be more preferable to experience the not so pleasant, which we do anyway in this reality, I would have thought, because most people have very negative expressions about this reality. Why are they doing it to us, for example? Why is this happening? The weather's bad. How tedious and how monotonous that all gets, how off-putting it is. Would you rather listen to someone who is sharing with you something that has been a beautiful experience for them, feeling that energy radiate out from them, of their excitement, their joy? Would you rather someone come to you and said, "Oh, something beautiful, something fantastic has happened"? I could say, "Well, something beautiful and fantastic has happened. Look at this. I mean, how beautiful is this?" I don't know if you can hear the birds in the background. Would you rather hear that? Or would you rather I complained it was too hot and I ache and etc., etc.? How would you feel if you kept hearing that repeatedly? Complaint, complain, complain, or I'm lacking this, I haven't got. But the thing is, the they is a necessary part of the whole program. You don't have to take any of those scripts. You can overwrite. You only got to look at this reality, how everything is reinforced by an underwriter. Well, if there's an underwriter, what is the overwriter? Who is the overwriter? If it's all within, well, need I even say to you, if you want confirmation, then go and look in the mirror, but look deep within the eyes. You may even see, or you may even wonder as you look in the mirror and say, well, who are you? Looking straight into the eyes of that reflection. What is that going to reflect back? What is that going to tell you? This realm, for all its perceived limitations, is a huge nursery. It is a huge school in a way, but there's nothing actually to be learned. It's more to be rediscovered within oneself, because it'll just keep playing out and will continue to play out. But for it to play out, keep playing out, it requires something new, that requires creation from the imagination. Because what there is here is as much limited and lacks any imagination. It requires your energy, your imagination, your ability to create for its very survival. It's played out as in many ways. I could think of Aliens versus Predator, if you want a film version. Which is the good one? Which is the bad one? Where does humanity sit in all that? One appears to have some sort of code of honor. The other appears to be just destructive and has acidic blood and will implant a seed by landing on the face and implanting an egg that bursts out the chest. The other one will use you as part of a sacrificial game with the predator. And they would appear to be the left hand and the right hand to some degree. And humanity's caught in the crossfire of it all, of course. I can turn to Wagner's Ring Cycle, which is a Bible in itself. you've got Loga, the god of fire. He is sent out by Wotan to try and find something of equal value to the goddess of love, which has been put up by Wotan in this story as a payment for the building of Valhalla, which represents this egoic status symbol. There are tyrants below ground that have a counterpart with tyrants above ground in that story. As above, so below. It's being played out. But it takes a hybrid to break the cycle. It is Brunhilde, the fallen Valkyrie, who is now just a human woman, but has the experience and the knowledge, of course. When she is awakened by the hero, in that story it's Siegfried, the one that has no fear, that can penetrate the fire and waken Brunhilde from her sleep. She then goes on to bring about the downfall of the gods of Valhalla. It's consumed by fire, which is Loga, the only one of these gods that stands out slightly separate. Wasn't given an equal share of these golden apples by Freya, but it's the only god that survives. The fire is the destruction, but it is also the creation of something new. It's about finding the fire within oneself as much as anything else, that driving force. You could call it the ego, but with a flipped polarity. It is brought under control. It is now working in alignment. It becomes a driving force rather than something that is looking for external recognition. If everything is a reflection, then surely it must be about internal recognition of oneself. So what a beautiful experience to go through. I was able to draw on these physical sensations that I've had before, and I thought, yeah, this is one of these alignment processes going on. It's something happening that's internally, but I'm feeling it physically. I've been given external scripts as to what is causing it. What I do know to be true is the feelings, the sensations that the body was telling me, which was coming out as like the whole alarm system was going off with all the joints aching, the fogginess in the head, and this feeling of tiredness. And many of you that I've spoken to in various conversations have confirmed this. Not everybody will be feeling this, of course, because it's all frequencies, and it depends on what frequency you're on and how open you are and how expanded your bandwidth is as to what you're going to import. So it was no bad thing at all. I shall have to pause for a minute because there is a motorbike coming. Yeah, so the answers that can be gleaned from anything. I've had many people say, oh, you're a deep thinker. Well, yes. You can even look externally and look for the deeper meanings in things, but then internalize them and go to the depths within oneself. What is being shown to me? I'll give you an example of this. If I was asked what is my favourite David Bowie album, for example, it's actually a story. The album is called Outside. I would love to do a breakdown of all the songs, but community guidelines and all that. There's a song called We Prick You, for example. There's another song, I think it's called I Have Not Been to Oxford Town, and it goes, toll the bell, pay the private eye, all's well, 20th century dies. Consider that it is written in a moment in time. It was written in the 20th century. So it's talking about the end of an era. Toll the bell. Is it ringing any bells inside you? Pay the private eye. The one where you go inside your cloister, you go and commune with your higher self or God or whatever you want to call it. Pay the private eye. all's well 20th century dies. How many of you want this reality, the way you perceive it, to end, or the evil to stop, or whatever? What are you manifesting from that? Because if the collective are not singing from the same song sheet, if there is no core of us, one core us, which is you in verse, what is the interactive field going to respond with? Now, I'm not saying trying to interfere with free will. There is no need to do that. That has all been accommodated. There is nothing that hasn't already been thought of. So, for example, 2020, was it such a bad thing if it is a balancing up, if it is not as in shown on the fourth day, the four is a door? That is being reflected in the evening, and the morning was the first day. So when you create a new reality, we could say the start of the age of Aquarius, where we acquire us, is another way of putting this. I lost my train of thought, it'll come back. Yes, the evening. So you need to even things out with inside oneself. The extreme rage, the extreme jubilation needs to be brought back more into more even flows, a flattening out of the curve, you could say. But with the evening, what follows but a mourning, a regret, a loss of something perhaps, a massive funeral? But it comes back to, what does fire do? It can be destructive, but in that destruction, it brings about and it creates it sets the scene for the new growth. It is reflected in controlled burning. The ash provides nutrients. There is no loss of energy. It just transforms into a different form, and so the cycle carries on. On that Outside album by David Bowie, there is a track called The Voyeur of Destruction, or The Voyeur of Utter Destruction as Beauty. As beauty is in brackets, because it's deliberate. It's within parameters. There's so much that is revealed in all of these things. On the one side, the Outside album gives you a story of somebody who is an art detective who has to look at these displays of arts, human intestines displayed on the outside of the body on a corpse, and has to decide if it is art or if it is a crime that has been committed. But it has a far deeper level to all of this, but it reflects that there is an art in everything. Consider also that atomic bomb, that explosion. What happens when the pineal gland is switched on? How that will just explode out as a kind of light inside a dome. How that picture of that atom bomb resembles a human brain. How that energy is actually a loss of energy, but it folds back in on itself. But it's something else that's part of this realm, which is finite. It will display something, but it is incapable of actually doing it. It is an artificial copy, a representation. It's symbolic as much as anything else. Wow, that's 24 minutes we've gone up to. So I suppose really this is a good point to end this video, but if you are suffering anyway, and if this video hasn't helped, then come and talk to me. we're going to call it a befriending service. It's, do you feel dapper? Do you have depression, anxiety, panic attacks, paranoia? And let's make it so it's energetically resolved. Let's help you find those keys to unlock those doors within inside yourself, to find that empowerment, to find that true sovereignty inside yourself. So you can walk in this world, you can walk in another world at the same time, and yet there is no time. It's all one great big paradox, it's all one great big toroidal field, it is all a huge holographic simulation that there's no point trying to figure it out, really. The key is to not thinking, because that creates electrical circuits. It's going to interfere with the magnetism. That is what is being reflected with the solar flares, the sun, the light, and then the interference of the harp that is playing a different tune. That is all that is really being shown. But like everything, when it is taken literally, it manifests and plays out in the material, in the physical, and we feel the effects. But how we perceive and interpret those feelings, those sensations, is going to make a huge difference as to whether you put yourself in an acidic or an alkaline state, or whether you can find a balance between the two, and see both sides. See both the 147 and the 369, and realize the 258 as well. So yes, I'll put links in the description if you wish to contact me, and the usual spiel. And I might as well say, like every other channel, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe and share button. That's entirely up to you. But I hope this video has uplifted you, inspired you, helped make sense of things. That is the pure intention of it. It'd be interesting to see. I wonder if any of you actually considered this whole thing with Junus. If Junus has two faces, and I'm the voice of Junus, then what am I going to be displaying to you as well? I feel I might have to make a confession video, because if this is an interactive realm, then I must take accountability and responsibility for something, from something I did partly in jest and partly true, which would have been probably around about 2 years or a year before 2020, which the interactive field may have actually taken note of and incorporated into its play out of its drama. Who knows? But I don't mind taking responsibility for it at all. It just comes down to perspective a lot. Won't thank me for it. But that's because of their perspective and not realizing who they are, what they're here for. They haven't done that internal work. They're still looking externally. That's up to them. But what they create for themselves, I wouldn't say is a particularly good experience. Right, we'll end that there, and I shall say love to you all.